The morning sun filters gently through the leaves, spilling golden light across a small hut hidden deep in the jungle. Inside, a young woman wakes, her eyes still heavy with sleep, but her face calm and serene. Beside her looms a figure unlike any other, a massive gorilla, his dark frame casting both shadow and comfort. Yet there is no fear here. She leans against him with trust, her hand resting lightly on his arm, as though he were both her protector and her home. When she steps outside, the air is fresh, filled with the scent of earth and wildflowers. He follows, each movement slow and deliberate, as if the world itself bends to his pace. Together they walk toward the river, and for a moment there is no danger, no hint of struggle, only the quiet beauty of two beings who have somehow found each other in a place ruled by chaos. By the waterfall, laughter breaks the stillness. She splashes in the cool water, her joy unrestrained, while he watches with steady eyes, the corner of his mouth pulling into what could almost be a smile. Then, with a thunderous step, he wades into the pool beside her, sending waves crashing against the rocks. She laughs even louder, her voice echoing beneath the roar of falling water, and he lowers his head as though humbled by her spirit. Side by side, they emerge from the river, droplets glistening on her skin, rivulets streaming down his powerful frame. The forest seems alive with their presence. Birds scatter into the sky, sunlight breaks through the canopy in shifting beams, and for that brief stretch of time, the world feels untouched and perfect. Later, they wander through the forest, plucking fruit from low-hanging branches. She bites into a ripe apple, the juice spilling down her lips, and he does the same, mimicking her gesture with surprising gentleness for his massive form. They walk together beneath rays of golden light that filter through the trees, their laughter mingling with the songs of hidden birds. Here, in the heart of the jungle, they are not prey or predator, not beast and human. They are companions. And though danger lurks beyond the shadows, for now they live in a fragile bubble of peace, a moment of happiness that neither fully understands, but both desperately cling to. The jungle, for all its beauty, was never safe. Even in moments of calm, danger lingered just beyond the trees. One morning, the girl wandered a little further from the hut, drawn by the shimmering river and the sound of rustling leaves. She thought she was alone, but the jungle had been watching. A shadow moved silently between the roots of ancient trees, scales sliding against damp earth. The serpent revealed itself at last, enormous, pale, and relentless. Its body wound through the foliage like a living river, each movement slow, deliberate, terrifying. Its eyes, cold and unblinking, fixed on her. She froze, every instinct screaming to run, but her feet refused to move. The serpent's tongue flickered in the air, tasting her fear. And then, with lightning speed, it struck. The coils wrapped around her body, crushing her chest, forcing the breath from her lungs. She clawed at the serpent's scales, but they were unyielding, smooth as stone. Her cry echoed through the jungle, desperate and small against the vast silence. From the distance came a sound, heavy footsteps pounding the earth, growing louder with each heartbeat. The gorilla burst through the undergrowth, a roar exploding from his chest, shaking the very ground. He lunged, slamming his fists into the serpent's coiled body. The forest erupted in violence, branches snapped, the river churned, and the air was filled with hisses and thunderous blows. The serpent tightened its grip, dragging both prey and predator into the dirt. For a moment, it seemed unstoppable, its muscles coiling like steel around the gorilla's chest. His bones groaned under the crushing force, and the girl screamed his name, though she had no words he could understand. Then, with a surge of raw power, the gorilla tore himself free. His fists hammered against the serpent's skull, once, twice, again, until the great predator writhed and collapsed, its body finally falling still. Silence returned to the jungle. The girl gasped for air, stumbling to her feet, her vision blurred by tears. Before her stood the gorilla, chest heaving, his dark eyes burning, not with anger, but with something else, something deeper. He had fought for her. He had chosen her. And she realized, trembling, that their bond was no longer one of fear, but of survival, of loyalty, and something greater still. But though the serpent lay dead, the jungle was far from finished. Its shadows hid dangers yet to come. In the days that followed the battle, the jungle seemed quieter. The great serpent was gone, its shadow no longer haunting the trees. Yet the memory of its coils lingered in the girl's body like a phantom pain. She woke often in the night, her breath sharp, her eyes wide, as if the monster were still wrapped around her chest. Each time, the gorilla was there. His vast silhouette rose against the moonlight, sitting by her side, guarding her sleep. He never closed his eyes for long, listening to every sound in the jungle, ready to strike at the first hint of danger. And though she could not speak his language, she understood. With him, she was safe. Their days took on a rhythm. At dawn, he would leave the hut, disappearing into the mist. She would watch from the doorway, worried, until his heavy steps returned. In his hands were gifts from the forest, fruit plucked from the highest trees, fish caught in the rushing streams, meat from a hunt she could not imagine. At first, she hesitated to take it, but hunger won, and trust followed. Together, they sat by the fire, the giant and the girl, sharing the simplest of meals. He ate with clumsy hands, tearing and chewing, while she laughed softly, showing him gentler ways. Sometimes he seemed to listen. Evenings became moments of peace. She wove leaves into little mats, repaired her clothing with thorns and vines, and hummed melodies from a life long gone. He would sit nearby, his dark eyes fixed on her, silent but present, as though her voice alone was enough to keep the jungle at bay. Then came the change. She felt it first as a weight in her body, a slowing of her steps, a tenderness in her belly. At the river's edge she paused, her hand resting against herself, her reflection rippling in the water. She was carrying life. The realization struck like both a gift and a curse. Alone, she could never survive it, but she was no longer alone. When she turned, he was there, towering, steady, unshakable. The protector, the beast who had become her world. And as the sun set behind the jungle, painting the sky in gold and crimson, she knew their lives were no longer just about survival. They were building something greater, a fragile sanctuary, a family born in the heart of a world that wanted them gone. Yet, even as peace settled over them, the jungle whispered its warning. Safety was an illusion, and soon others would come. Peace never lasts long in the jungle. The girl and the gorilla had carved out a fragile sanctuary, but the world beyond the trees had not forgotten them. And one day, the silence was broken. It began with distant sounds, the crash of axes, the shouts of men, the thunder of drums. She froze, her heart pounding. These were not the calls of the jungle. These were the voices of humans. They came in numbers, armed with weapons, their eyes filled with fear and greed. To them, the gorilla was not a protector, not a guardian. He was a monster. And she, by his side, was a prize to be taken back. The soldiers advanced through the trees, fire and smoke choking the sky. The girl screamed for them to stop, but her voice was drowned by the crack of rifles and the roar of engines. The jungle itself seemed to tremble under the weight of invasion. The gorilla rose to meet them, his chest broad, his roar shattering the air. Bullets struck his hide, but still he stood, fists slamming into the earth, sending men scattering like leaves in a storm. He fought with everything he had, not for himself, but for her. In the chaos, she was dragged away. Rough hands tore her from the place she called home. She cried out, reaching for him, but the distance grew wider with every moment. And then, from the depths of the jungle, an even greater terror emerged. A monstrous creature, its tentacles writhing like rivers of muscle, rose from the swamp. The men screamed as it struck, dragging them into the water. The gorilla lunged at it, his roar clashing with the hiss of the beast. The battle shook the world. Tentacles wrapped around his chest, pulling him down, but he tore them free. Fists collided with flesh, water churned into foam, and screams echoed through the night. The girl watched in horror, powerless, as protector and monster fought in a storm of rage. At last, the noise faded. The water stilled. Smoke hung heavy in the air. The jungle was silent again. On the shore, the girl collapsed, her face streaked with tears. Around her lay the ruins of everything she had known, the hut, the river, the peace they had built. She looked into the distance, praying for the shadow of her guardian to rise once more. But all she heard was the endless roar of the jungle. And so their story closes, not with victory, but with the reminder that in this wild and merciless world, love and survival come at the greatest cost. This was only one chapter of their untold story. If you want to hear more, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for the next adventure.